We know. How? Don't you worry about it. Just come help me a little. The two men walked up to where John was being held. Doc Vasquez was just finishing up with him. John had a line of stitches running down the bridge of his nose and a bandage over his left eye. Gunny looked over at Mark with a "What the hell did you beat him with" look. How is he, Doc? The old man asked. He'll be all right, only a busted nose and a black eye. I'd say he's pretty lucky. I'll say, Ralph agreed. If you let some of those women from the ranch have at him, he'd be singing soprano right about now. Mark was surprised they didn't seem upset about John's condition. Doc and Ralph started heading to the door. There's a story there. Gunny stopped Ralph by asking him for some help for a couple of minutes. Doc continued out the door, but Mark noticed the curious look on his face as he disappeared. Gunny began to rummage through the large shed. Even though he'd only been in it a few times, he seemed to know where everything he wanted was. He found some nylon rope, a 2-foot square piece of plywood, and a set of jumper cables. Mark, go in the house and bring me a big bowl of water, a container of salt, and a pair of those yellow rubber gloves Jess uses to wash the dishes. Oh yeah, bring me a couple of those sponges on the sink, too. Mark didn't question the old man. He did as he was told, noticing that John was silently watching what was going on out of his one good eye. When Mark came back out, Ralph and Gunny had John up against the big wooden support pole in the middle of the shed. He was standing on the plywood, and Gunny was taping his ankles to the pole. Next, the old man put a few wraps around the prisoner and the support at waist level. Mark set the items Gunny had requested down on the workbench, wondering what in the world the old man was up to. He watched as the retired Marine pulled out his pocket knife and cut 2 sections of rope, each about 8 feet long. He tied one to each of John's wrists just above where they were taped. He took the free ends and threw them over the horizontal roof support that the beam John was tied to held up. When I cut his hands loose, you two pull his arms up with the rope. Then tie them off, not too tight, just snug, Gunny instructed Mark and Ralph. The 2 assistants did as they were told, and when they were finished, John looked like the letter Y. John could no longer hold his tongue. You gonna beat me again? Go ahead. I ain't telling you shit. You can't make me talk. You might as well go ahead and put a cap in me. Gunny paid no attention to what John was saying. Now bring me 4 of those golf cart batteries. Mark and Ralph looked at each other for a second and then did what Gunny had requested. When Mark set 2 of the heavy batteries down in front of John, he could see that the outlaw was still trying to figure out what Gunny was going to do. Ralph set the other 2 batteries next to Mark's. Now get me them battery cables you bought from Rodney, Gunny told Mark. Mark went over to the wall and pulled the short cables he'd bought to hook the batteries together off a hook on the wall. The old man took the cables from Mark and started hooking the batteries up, not in parallel as Mark had intended to do with them, but in series. Wired positive on one battery to negative on the next, they would produce 24 volts. Mark saw the look on John's face when he figured out what the old man was doing. It was one of complete horror, but it went away as fast as it had come, and it was replaced by the burning, hate-filled stare. John, Gunny began, we're going to get some honest answers from you. You might as well tell us what we want to know now and save yourself a whole lot of misery. You will talk. Everyone always does. It's only a matter of how much time it's going to take. Do you understand?